Welcome to Podcast 83, a regular look at the news, stories, and trends related to Michigan's 83 counties from the Michigan Association of Counties.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Podcast 83, the podcast put on by the Michigan Association of Counties. We are joined today by Deena, Bosworth, and Jimmy Johnson of our government affairs staff. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Deena. Welcome, Jimmy. Hope you had a good weekend. If you are a Western Michigan hockey fan, a big weekend for the Broncos with the national championship in hockey. That was, I think, pretty unexpected. So good for them. Good for Kalamazoo.
Yeah, good for them. My alma mater. It was kind of nice.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it was fun. And I watched the last shot of the Masters. Didn't watch it all, but
Yeah, that was an exciting Masters. If you're a golf fan, it went to extra holes. That's always fun. So, all right, let's get into it, guys. So last week we had our conference on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So, Deena, Jimmy, give me one of your highlights. What did you want to highlight from the conference that you enjoyed, thought was great?
I loved having everyone in one room.
Yeah.
And the opportunity for everybody to experience all of those different pods that we had, and be able to talk to each other about it. I thought that was fantastic.
Jimmy, how about you?
Yeah, and this was my first conference to go to, so it was just very interesting, being able to meet a lot of our members, like Deena said, having everybody in the same room. But also, with each pod, we had pretty lively discussion, it seemed like, as well. A lot of people had some really insightful follow-ups, and that was really good as well, just for myself personally, because then I would get a better understanding of how those individual issues were affecting the different counties. So overall, I thought that it was really great, and a lot of the questions asked were, very insightful.
Yeah, the room looked good. I thought the room looked good. I thought it flowed really well. Any policy issues you want to highlight before we switch gears a little bit? Deena?
Oh, I thought Matt Chase was fantastic.
Yeah,
I really did. I thought, with all of the confusion going on at the federal level of things that are happening, I thought Matt presented it in a very concise manner and really, helped our members understand what's going on at the federal level. I think the conversation about the Constitutional Convention was interesting. That was great. What do you like, Jimmy?
Honestly, for me, it was the Constitutional Convention part because, I was talking to some of our members. A lot of people, they know that this is usually coming up every so often, but, once it does come up, it usually catches people off guard. So, having an expert there that, genuinely understands the nuts and bolts of this was really interesting. Just being able to understand the history behind it, how our current Constitution was made, and what could potentially happen and what it would look like if this was to take effect here. So overall, I thought that was probably the highlight for me, was just learning more about the Constitutional Convention.
Yeah, and the legislative panel was great. I thought Kyle did a nice job there. We didn't get a ton of answers out of our legislators, but we did have a good discussion on road funding, what they think they might be able to get done, come together on. There's optimism on the budget. Whether everyone shares that optimism or not, I don't know. But as we get into May, we'll start getting targets. Hopefully they start working together in their conference committees and that sort of thing, so we can get a budget by July 1st, if that's the case. Obviously, the drop dead deadline is until October 1st, but there's still a lot of time between now and then to get it done. So hopefully they can come together like they did on some of that earned sick time paid.
Yeah, that was quite the lively debate about whether or not they thought they were going to get the budget done. There was one very optimistic member that said by June 1st.
Yep.
I don't know if I'm buying that, but it was definitely the dark cloud around a lot of the policy issues they talked about too. What does this budget really look like? And if we're anticipating the cuts from the federal government, how are we going to fund the roads? Is there really the money there for the House Republican road package? Is it not? So a lot of debate and a lot of uncertainty on it. So yeah, that was kind of the dark cloud on the policy.
Well, and it's an interesting discussion, right? Because you do have a roads package presented by the House, passed out of the House now. The governor still wants to get roads done. I'm still waiting to see what her package is. Will the Senate come out with their own package? Will it be her package? How will their funding mechanism look like wherever those funds go? But it really is part of the budget discussion too, because while it's a separate package, it's still using general fund dollars. It's taking away sales tax dollars that impacts the budget. So it'll be interesting to see how. Obviously, the budget is a huge thing to negotiate, but now you have this huge package to negotiate alongside of that, and how that impacts everything when you have a split legislature, right?
And Kyle did a really good job just facilitating the entire conversation throughout the panel, with his experience, being in Lansing, and he has a really deep understanding of the process. I thought that he was honestly one of the perfect people to be able to do that because, we were able to get some answers. He was able to ask on a broad array of issues, but at the same time, keep it light as well. So, and I think that was evidenced by his last line of questions on whether everybody thought that there should be a Doge in Michigan or not.
Yeah.
And I thought all of the different answers we got from that were pretty funny as well.
Yeah. Yeah, he does a good job with that. All right, let's change gears a little bit. One thing we talked about, I think it was brought up in the questions, or maybe one of the legislators brought it up at the conference on the legislative panel was and I think we've talked about it on this podcast, was let's recap the veteran grant issue. Deena, Jimmy, who wants to touch on that and kind of give us a quick little update on it? Jimmy, you want to talk about that quick?
Yeah, sure thing. So the Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency, we were made aware within the last month that they're experiencing a $3.6 million shortfall in their projected funding for the Michigan Veterans Service Fund grant for the fiscal year of 2026. Typically what happens is the Veterans Affairs Agency, they'll issue its funding projections a year in advance to give counties the adequate time to plan. And then the grant applications for these that the counties would fill out are due annually on June 2nd, with award letters are sent out on July 2nd. So this is quite a bit in advance when they do this. Within the last year, there's been a very big growth in counties that are participating in the program. There were 35 counties 2 years ago. Most recently, now there are 70 that are involved. Originally, going back before they've had to recalculate, they believed that they would have $8.8 million worth of grants for fiscal year 2026. However, new updated figures had shown that the actual funding falls short by $3.6 million. And so a lot of these counties that have already gotten letters and gotten these award grant letters coming in have been told, hey, actually, we need you guys to recalculate your funding because we have all these other counties coming in. So please resubmit what your plan is going to be. So we're seeing some counties are losing hundreds of thousands of dollars across the board. So there's a lot of issues that are taking place there when they're being told by the department that they're going to get this money and they're expecting this money, and now they're seeing a drastic cut in it. Luckily, we have Representative Julie Rogers. She was sitting in on, she's an appropriations member, and she had been talking about the need to fix this. She's currently working with us and looking for different avenues to where we can backfill that funding, whether that's from a couple different sources, or in the last case measure would be, through general fund appropriation. Now, we know that the way that the budget is looking, just by the way that our legislative panel went, nobody really knows. So that's kind of the last ditch effort right there would be general fund appropriation. So we're hoping to find some other areas where she'd be able to backfill that money and our counties can be made whole, because ensuring that money that the state said that they were going to be receiving is so important. And so, we're going to be doing what we can to help facilitate that and make sure that our counties are made whole.
And what would the dollar figure be that they're short, did they say?
As of right now, it's $3.6 million.
Okay, so that's not a ton of money. I mean, that should be, even in a supplemental, it should be fairly easy to get done to keep counties whole. But like you said, we'll stay tuned and see what avenue.
And luckily, this is a bipartisan thing. People on both sides, we're hearing from members on either side of the aisle that are equally as upset. So I think that this is going to be one of those things that everybody can work together on.
Yeah, good. We'll see how things play out on that. Deena, looking at the calendar, legislative calendar this week, ton of committee meetings, especially on the House side, not so much on the Senate side. What are we looking forward to in some of these committees that we may want to highlight for members for next week?
There's one package of bills I want to talk about, and that's the Public Safety and Violence Prevention Fund. This is an issue that's been floating around for a couple of years now. Last legislative term, there were bills to create this Public Safety and Violence Prevention Fund. The governor had recommended an appropriation in her budget for the Public Safety and Violence Prevention Fund. But the difference between last year and this year is that this year the policy bills include counties in it. And we were quite upset that there was going to be $75 million in the budget for public safety services, in addition to what you spend already, but to go out to all cities, villages, and townships, regardless of if they had a police force or not. And we all know from the county perspective, we provide all kinds of public safety support for our municipalities, townships, and cities alike. We have our secondary road patrol, our sheriff's department, our jails, our prosecutor's office, the whole court system, drug treatment courts. I mean, we're involved all the time. So this year, when the bills were introduced, 4260 and 4261, they actually included a provision for counties. So as the bill is written right now, it is a 1.5% carve out of the state sales tax that would go into this fund. That's about $108 million. A little more than $108 million. The first $75 million, some of it is siphoned off for Crime Victims' Rights Fund, some for the department. The rest, the other $72 million will go out to cities, villages, and townships and counties if the township does not have a police department, for violence prevention efforts and public safety. Now, anything above $75 million is just for counties. And then each county would have to apply to get money from this fund. So if estimates are about right, that's about another $33 million, almost $34 million available for counties for these endeavors. They would have to apply for it, and then money would be sent out based on the size of the police force that you have. So it would be prorated by the department. Now, this is the first step in the process, but it's been a priority for both chambers and the governor's office for 3 years now. So I have a feeling this is going to move and end up working out to our benefit.
So about $33 million for counties, and some sort, we're looking at it as maybe some sort of a grant application process or something like that,
Yeah.
or
It
But
would
no, it's not
absolutely
as-
be an application process. It's not
probably
just
not
an
as-
automatic payment out. It's not.
but not maybe as in depth as like a grant application, but some sort of application.
Right.
Right.
And there are much fewer restrictions on the use of the dollars that go to the county than there is on the dollars that go to the municipalities.
Okay. And
Because
that's written-
because of all of those things that I've just mentioned,
Right.
the prosecutor's office, the drug treatment courts, the mental health efforts that we support. So
Interesting. So that bill's up this week with what day?
this Thursday
Okay.
at 9 a.m.
Good.
Government Ops Committee.
All right. Anything else we want to highlight this week?
We'll see how the budget conversations continue. You know,
Okay.
they're still holding subcommittee meetings. They're still talking about it. We don't know if the Senate's going to have a whole lot of activity this week, but we expect the House to move forward with all kinds of stuff. So
All right, great. And then finally, for those that did attend the conference, the surveys are out there, so please respond to the surveys so we can take those suggestions under consideration. Should have been sent out last week, and I think the responses will be available. I think and maybe an indefinite. I didn't see it, but please respond as soon as you can. So with that, we'll sign off and see everyone next week. Thanks, everyone.
awesome.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Podcast 83.